Okay, video 4, breaking down Diddy and Kim Porter's relationship using Kim's alleged journal. We're on video 4, page 7. Then he asked me to do it again. It was insane. Sean said, "Baby, I can't stop thinking about it." "What the hell are you talking about?" I responded. Sean continued, "I just can't stop thinking about that night. It was amazing. Can you screw me one more time, please?" I became infuriated. "Why don't you go to Clive? He's the one screwing you, isn't he?" Then Sean hit me. This was the first time, but he slapped me hard. Before I could form my words, he began to beg. I'm sorry, holding my cheek where he hit me. I turned and ran off. That should have been it, but I guess I'm a glutton for punishment. He sent flowers and a bunch of expensive gifts. So now, here are some very critical, sadly, here are some critical elements to a trauma bond. Of course we see P. Diddy not keeping his word from before. Of course he's lying. You know why? Because with pathological people, words and actions do not match. And it's a huge red flag. And so as we see, he's pressuring her again, right? There's coercive control because at the bottom of the trauma bond, the pathological partner wants power and control over his victim. And she set a sexual boundary. He's not respecting it, and then he rages at her. Very typical, unfortunately, that when you try to set a boundary with a pathological lover, they go nuts. And he doesn't just rage at her, he gets physically abusive, and she runs away. So he lies, he coerces her, and he physically abuses her. Doesn't sound like love. And we see the psychological and the physical abuse in a trauma bond. It usually does escalate. And now Kim fears him, right? Because he's gotten physical with her. She fears him. And that's the other piece to a trauma bond, is the power imbalance. And so he's gaining the power by instilling fear into her. But then, of course, Diddy love bombs her after he's sexually coerced her and physically harmed her and lied to her and sends her expensive flowers and gifts. Doesn't seem like enough, but I get it. And this exchange also demonstrates what really causes the bond in the trauma bonds. And that is a term called intermittent reinforcement, which is the repeated pattern of your lover harming, betraying, and loving you, harming, betraying, and loving you. And so we see this, right, when Diddy sucks her in, when he's wearing his Romeo mask and he sucks her in with the charm. But then the second he doesn't get his needs met, he became physically violent. Now we see Dirty John. And then he switched to Romeo again, right, when he sends her the flowers and gifts. And so this is the pattern, the behavioral pattern of intermittent reinforcement. And this is the bond in the trauma bond. And what happens is the Dirty John mask is cruel, controlling, unkind 75% of the time. But the Romeo mask is there where they're kind, generous, and helpful 30% of the time. And again, this is the bond that creates the trauma bond.